What do you believe to be the social and emotional pressures or factors that encourage homelessness?
I think one of the biggest things is poverty, right? And I look at it specifically the social determinants of health. So there's many factors that we all deal with as individuals that can affect our ability to be successful and participate in community. And some of them is because of racism, the level of education you've got, whether you've got access to food, access to water, access to education.
So I would say the biggest issue that contributes to homelessness is poverty. In our housing services, people who are in shelters, people who are in jails, people who are in hospitals, and then we actually go out on the street and do a street count.
Yeah.
And we ask them, what is the number one reason? And that point in time reports on our website. What is the number one reason you don't have a house? And the primary, most people will say, because I don't have enough money.
Right.
So it leads us to lack of affordable and accessible housing. There's trauma. So people who are Indigenous are overrepresented. Many is the residential school impact. Early trauma from age 0 to 3. We know that from age 0 to 3 brain development, which you probably were so loved and adored from age 0 to 3, which is why you're at Bishop Carroll right now. Many of the people we serve did not have that same experience. So there's so many things that impact somebody experiencing homelessness. Many of the people we serve don't have a social safety net. And what I mean by that, like your dad would say, or your grandpa would say, somebody will say, come live with me, right? You will never experience in homelessness because you have this family that will take care of you no matter what. And I give you an example. I have a son who is much older than you. He lives in Edmonton. And when he first moved out, he phoned me because he rented an apartment, Patrick, and he didn't realize that you had to give a month damage deposit. So he had to actually come up with another $1,500. Well, for many of the people we serve, that would mean they would show up in a shelter. For me, he phones his mom who says, can I borrow $1,500? Right? Yeah.
I love the word homeless. And often in this culture, they like to talk about houseless. And they say, oh, people are houseless. We need to provide them a house and it's going to make a difference, like an apartment, a structure, whatever. But what's happened in our society is that people truly became homeless. When I think about what the values of home are with our family, I mean, we have each other, we support each other. If we have a challenge or anything like that, we're gonna stick with each other throughout a challenge. We love each other. It doesn't matter what happens. We're loyal to each other. And it just, the list goes on and on. That's home. It's nothing to do with structure, okay? It's nothing to do with the house that we're sitting in right now. Yeah. It's to do with our attitude and our relationship with each other. And what happens with homeless people is they lose that. They lose home. They lose opportunity to be able to have that support and network. And it could be for a whole variety of reasons. It could be their choices, someone else's choices, you know, whatever. There's all sorts of blame games that are played about who did what wrong. But at the end of the day, what's missing is that love and care and support that we find in a good, nurturing home environment. And if we need to recreate that for people, right? That opportunity to actually be part of something. You know, I remember one time I said, you know, I'm going to help this guy. I'm going to get him an apartment, and it's going to be wonderful. So he is a guy on the streets for some time, and I says, get him an apartment. So we got some money together. We paid his first month's rent. We were all excited. Off he goes into his apartment, okay, and got him some furniture, did all that sort of thing. And I said, well, that's good. Everything was going to be lovely now. I won't see him in the lineup for food tonight, I'm sure. You know, we even gave him food. 2 days later, guess where he was? Yeah. He was in the lineup. Why? He needs community. You know, yeah. You know, life without community, life without family, life without support is actually what causes people to falter more than structure. Right. You know, I mean, for a long time we lived with fairly minimal structures in the world. Minimal structures. We don't, that is not what holds us together. And so what causes homelessness? Homelessness. Not having the the values and the activity that are associated with healthy home.
I think sometimes it's mental health and addiction, so a lot of the folks that we work with have some mental health issues, but a lot of it is because it hasn't been addressed. They've never had the ability or the opportunity to meet with a doctor to address the mental health issues.
Right.
And they'll be upset because they're hungry.
Yeah.
They're not angry, they're hungry. And so all of us can probably reflect on a time in our lives when we were hungry and we weren't our best self, right?
Yeah.
We were grumpy and miserable and because dinner's not ready, or I skipped lunch, or I ran out the door to school and I should have had breakfast.
Our community has changed in the way that we deal with problems and issues. We now have professionals. Okay, so we'll have, somebody has a breakdown in their family, it's all falling apart. It's what we do now is the professional counselor comes along. But that's only been in the last maybe 80 years or so that's been taking place. Before that happened, if you had a problem in your community, in your home, and you had a challenge, let's say your home, a parent dies or something like that. What would happen is all your neighbors would come around and they would knock on the door and they say, we're here we have food, we have time. Your pastor would come in, your friends would come around you, and you would come around your family and they would support you. I think that what really creates change in people's lives is not the professional, but it's actually the healthy community around them. For me, the biggest change I've seen happen in people's life is, and I don't even hesitate to say so, is when people finally get their spiritual self in order. No matter what their brokenness is, whatever their challenge is, to realize there's something bigger, that there is actually a light at the end of the tunnel, that there's hope in life. When you've been sucked so far down a hole that you don't see any light anymore, it's a horrible place to be. And then some people come along and they say, hey, we're here to care for you. We believe that something could happen good in your life. And I realized it was possible. And then slowly I started to see it and go, well, there's light at the end of that tunnel. There's light out there. I can go towards that. That's something that's going to make a difference for me. Eventually I found that light for me, and I believe is really for so many others, is a relationship with Jesus Christ. That changed my life. I all of a sudden had hope, I had purpose, I had a bigger meaning in my life, and I was sure excited to go and share that with others.